Hi, this is Dr. Janet, and I thought I would come to you today to offer you something to do in this kind of critical time of social isolation. I know as parents things are pretty tough. You're at home and trying to keep your children entertained, and I thought I would share this video with you today of a book that I wrote nearly 30 years ago, and it is called The Magic, and it is for sale on Amazon, but feeling good about humanity right now and wanting to help my fellow friends and to entertain a little bit, I thought I would read this book to you, and hopefully you can share it with your children, and it might give you a little conversation starter on using creativity and imagination in this critical time. So here goes. I wrote this book, like I said, nearly 30 years ago when my sons, Anthony, David, and Nicholas Adams, were little boys, and they are grown men now and happen to be my inspiration for this book. It is obviously been inspired by them, some of which I learned from experience from them and wanted to put into words. So, happy listening. The name of the book is The Magic. "Can I go out, Mom?" asked Anthony. He was the biggest boy. He was 6. He knew lots of things. He made lots of things. Neat stuff, like rocket ships and camps and homemade fireworks. Well, really, the fireworks were just a bunch of real fireworks packed into a toilet paper tube and taped together. Dad had to be there to shoot them off, but Tony thought it up. He could always think of something fun to do, even on the boringest days. And here's a little picture of Anthony. "What did you say, Tony?" asked Mom. She was busy downstairs and she didn't hear. Tony's mom liked to hear about his plans. She would usually let Tony try out his new ideas, even if sometimes he made a mess or got dirty. Well, most of the time, anyway. Sometimes when they were going to Grandma's or ready to go to the mall, or if it was too close to bedtime, Mom would say, "No, not now, but only once in a while." "Can I go outside?" Tony asked again, this time coming closer to the stairs. "Sure," said Mom. "How about taking Nick out with you?" Nicholas was the littlest boy. He was 4. He liked to make things too. Once he used all of Mom's best scarves to make a snake. He tied them all together and he slithered them through the mud. Mom said he was creative, and then she sent him to his room. "Hey, Nick," hollered Tony. "Want to go outside?" "Sure," Nick shouted back. He could tell by the sound of Tony's voice that something was up. "What are we going to do?" Nick asked as he struggled to put on his high-top sneakers. He couldn't tie them yet, but if he twisted the laces just right, they almost looked as if they were tied. "Let's go into the woods. I have a great idea." Tony always had great ideas. Once he made some paint out of mud and grass and stuff. He and Nick painted all the trees in the forest. Mom said they better not paint the house. "What will we do?" asked Nick. Tony's eyes widened. "Let's make a potion, a magic potion." "What will it do, Tony?" "Let's make a potion, Nick, that will make us fly." Do you think they did it? Well, sit back and listen. "Okay," Nick gasped. "That would be fun. We could fly up high, like kites, maybe even as high as the ceiling tower in Toronto." "That's CN Tower, Nick, Not ceiling tower. Geez, Tony shook his head. Oh, said Nick. He thought his name made more sense. After all, it was really a high, high tower, almost up to the ceiling. What would we need to make the potion, Tony? Lots of neat stuff, Tony answered. We'll put it all in a magic jar. Then, when we say the right magic words, we'll soar up to the sky. What kind of stuff? Tony thought for a minute. This is going to be tough. Let's go ask Mom. Mom, they both spoke at once. We need help. They ran to the stairs at full speed and they slid down the basement steps on their bellies in a matter of seconds. Mom hated when they did that. She just knew they were going to get brush burn on their stomachs. But it didn't matter now. They were in a hurry. A new plan was in the making. Mom, they called again. What is it today? She called back. She already suspected they were up to something. Here's a picture of them sliding down the steps. We are making a magic portion, said Nick. It's potion, corrected Tony. And we're not sure what stuff we need. Well, pondered Mom, what's this magic potion going to do? It's going to make us fly, said Nick. His eyes were as big as saucers. Well, Mom's eyes narrowed into slits. She always did that when she was thinking hard. It looks like you're going to need some very special ingredients. Come with me. She finished folding Nick's dinosaur shirt and she placed it on the pile. It seemed like Mom folded laundry every day. When I get big, thought Tony, I'm going to make Mom a robot that will fold clothes. I could use tin cans, some old rope, and, well, that's for another day. Today, we are going to fly. And there's a picture of Mom folding clothes. They followed Mom upstairs and into the garage. Let's see, said Mom. What do you guys think you are going to need? A jar, Tony answered, a special jar to put all the magic stuff in. I know. She reached up to a high shelf, moved a couple of paint cans, and brought down an odd-looking greenish-colored jar. It had letters on it. No label like on the pickle jars in the refrigerator, just letters that seemed to be coming right out of the glass. You could feel them. They felt bumpy. And there's Mom reaching up high on the shelf for the jar. Hey, that's neat. Tony carefully took the treasure from his mom. What kind of jar is this? It's an old canning jar, honey. It belonged to your great-grandma Bee. She used these when she stored food for the winter. Neat, said Tony. Can we use it? Yes, but be very careful not to drop it. It's thick glass, but it could break. Okay, agreed Tony. He was already thinking about adding water and sand and maybe some of those orange berries from the mountain ash tree in the front yard. This was going to be a great potion. What else? Asked Mom. Well, replied Tony, I thought we'd start with water and add some neat stuff from the forest. I'm going to put in a rock, announced Nick. A magic rock. He looked down and started checking the corners of the garage for his contribution. And there's a picture of the garage. Sounds good to me, added Mom. But if this magic potion is going to be magic and make you fly, you're going to need one very special ingredient. What's that? Gasped Tony. Nick stopped searching for a moment and looked at Tony. Then he looked at Mom. This all sounded very important all of a sudden. He moved in closer. He didn't want to miss a thing. "Well," whispered Mom, "be sure that after your potion is made and mixed very well, you add one more thing." "What?" both boys blurted out at the same time. "Be sure," said Mom in her "I have a surprise for you" voice, "that when all is said and done, you add just a touch of..." And she stooped down and she pulled both boys close to her. "Add a touch of imagination." She said the words slowly, letting the sounds spill over her lips in mystic wonder. Can you say that big word? Can you say imagination? "Wow, what is that?" wondered Tony aloud. "Do we have some?" asked Nick. "Yes, we have quite a bit of it around this house," said Mom. "But you'll have to find it for yourselves. That's part of the magic." "Where should we look?" asked Tony. This sounded like a hide-and-seek game now. He was getting excited and he couldn't wait to get started. "I can't tell you. Nobody can," said Mom. "You'll have to find it for yourselves. And when you do, you'll know it. It's there. Look hard, but not too hard. When you've looked long enough, it'll find you." "And then we'll fly?" asked Tony. "And then you'll fly," said Mom. Tony wrapped his arm around Grandma Bee's jar, handed Nick the lid, and both boys raced out of the garage, down the hill, and into the lot next door. It wasn't far at all, and it wasn't really a forest. It was just an empty lot with a bunch of trees, but to two little boys, it was big and deep and full of wonderful things. It was their forest. There's a picture of the forest. They walked through the pines and they settled in at their favorite spot just behind their clubhouse. The clubhouse was really an empty shed that Dad let the boys have for their secret club meetings. They liked to play behind it too. Nestled in the trees, directly behind the shed, they had a little clearing. They had spent most of one afternoon lugging rocks into the clearing and making a make-believe campsite, lining up the rocks in a near-perfect circle. Here, Tony placed the jar, very carefully, making sure it was level by wiggling it back and forth a few times in the soft soil. Here's the jar. "We're ready," Tony stated. "Nick, you get the water." Off Nick scampered with an old tin can to the spigot at the back of the house. Nick always got the water when they needed it. He felt important when he got the water. Tony knew that. He also knew that it saved him some legwork. And here's a picture of the two boys at the clubhouse. Nick brought the water and together they poured some into the magical jar, just about halfway. Then they scurried through the trees and the leaves, searching carefully for unknown bits of magic to add to their potion. Nick overturned a rock and he reached down. "How about this?" In his outstretched hand wiggled a brown earthworm. Tony glanced over quickly. Nah, look for something that flies." They searched and finally ended up with a carefully chosen mixture of berries, leaves, insect wings, flowers, feathers, and Nick's magic rock. They mixed and they mixed and they mixed. Then they stopped. Tony examined the concoction. "We need some magic words." Nick continued to search the ground. "Yeah, and we also need some imagination." "That's imagination," said Tony, "but I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we found some by accident and it's already in there. Let's think of some magic words and give it a try." They thought for a long time about all the magic words they know, like bippity-boppity-boo and abracadabra, but they didn't seem quite right. "We need to make up our own words," announced Tony. He thought again. He should be good at this because he always came up with new, usually silly words to all those songs he learned in preschool, like "Row, row, row your goat" and "We wish you a hairy fishmas." "I know," he said. "How about this?" He took Nick aside and he whispered the words into his ear. He didn't want to say them aloud yet. He didn't want to trigger the magic until they were really ready. And here's a picture of him whispering to Nick. Good. Nick's eyes widened. They sound real good and kind of scary. Great. Well, are you ready? Tony's heart was pounding. Yep, gulped Nick. His stomach felt like the day he rode the tilt-a-whirl at the church festival. Let's give it a try. Here they are, sitting with their hands around the jar. They place their hands on the jar, close their eyes, and very slowly, very quietly, Tony said the words. Magic, magic, make us fly, take us high into the sky. They waited, eyes shut tight, no breathing, hearts pounding. They waited. Tony, whispered Nick. No answer. Tony, he said again, eyes still shut, afraid to look. What? His big brother answered. Are we flying? No, said Tony, it didn't work. Let's try again. Tony took a deep breath. Magic, magic, make us fly, take us high into the sky. And again they waited. The wind blew. A cool gust circled the boys and tousled their hair. But they didn't move. Tony looked up. Ah, darn. It's not going to work. We need the gradient, Nick announced with conviction. What? Tony responded, turning his head to look at his brother. Imagination, like Mom said, Nick explained. Oh, that, Tony said as he shook his head. I guess we didn't find it. I wonder what it looks like. His eyes returned to the ground in a last attempt to spot the magic element. You want to look for it with me? Nah, I'm tired. Nick yawned, and stood up. He sat down on the grassy hill bordering the forest. I think I'll just rest here for a minute. Okay, me too, Tony said. He climbed up next to his brother, and they laid back, looking up at the blue sky. And here they are, laying on the hill. Look up there, Nick. Wouldn't it be great if we could float up there with the clouds? Yeah, it'd be neat. Nick stared up at the sky. Maybe we could go up as high as the entire state building. That's Empire State Building, Nick. No one spoke for a moment. They just stared up at the sky. How do you think it would feel? Probably cool. We'd see the tops of things. We'd feel like the wind. We'd see the tops of trees and the tops of houses. We'd feel lighter than air. We'd soar higher and higher. If I close my eyes, I can see the tops of the trees in the forest. I can see Mom's car in the driveway. It's only a tiny blue speck. There, straight ahead, I see a red kite. I can almost touch it. I can feel the wind in my face. It's so cool. And when I put my arms out like this, I can turn. And when I do this, I can make circles in the air. The boys daydreamed for a long time, pretending to be like birds, flying from treetop to treetop, until Mom called. It was lunchtime, time to land and return home for refueling. Well, Mom asked, how'd the magic potion work? Not very well, replied Tony. We didn't really fly. We just pretended to be flying. Oh, said Mom, how did you do that? Well, we laid on the hill, said Nick, and we looked up, and it felt really neat. We just pretended we could fly, said Tony. But for a while, I thought I was up in the sky. Me too, said Nick. It was fun, even if we didn't use any imagination. Oh, said Mom, I don't know. I think maybe you did. Well, that's the end of the story. And right now, why don't you talk a little bit with your mom and your dad or your grandma or your grandpa or whoever's with you and talk to them about imagination and what that is, and if you can use your imagination to stay busy and do some creative things during this time of staying at home. Maybe you can write your own story. Use your own imagination. Well, thanks for listening. See y'all soon.